Welcome, I'm Erica Onofrio, and I am going to talk about coming out of the spiritual closet. Now, this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. It's also one that I see come up super frequently with clients, so I'm going to dive into it. Two different things. First thing I'm going to dive into is talking about my personal experiences with coming out of the spiritual closet. And the second thing that I'm going to talk about is what you can do if you are still in the spiritual closet today. So I've got tons of notes, tons of things to talk about. So let's get started. First, we're going to go into what is the spiritual closet, right? What closet are we coming out of? Well, we're coming out of this space where we're hiding a huge part of ourselves. And so when you're in the spiritual closet, you know it, you know if you're in there. You might have this whole spiritual life that's going on, or maybe things are just starting to happen to you, but you haven't told anyone about it yet. And you are just like, oh, I'm not going to share this with any humans at all. So you are in the spiritual closet if you're in that space. Or if you only have come out to a select few individuals, then you're still in the spiritual closet because you're not living your true, full, authentic life as your full, true, authentic self. So let's dive into the why. So for me, I had different reasons why I didn't want to come out of the spiritual closet. I'm going to guess that some of those are very similar for you, and give or take some, and I'm going to dive into them. So, fear of rejection. Of course I didn't want to come out of the spiritual closet. I was afraid. I didn't want to be rejected by everyone that I knew and everyone that I loved. I was so scared that if people found out that I was like doing this weird stuff, that they wouldn't want to be friends with me anymore. They wouldn't want to be around me anymore. And I was still sort of like kind of freaked out about my own self, you know? So it's like I certainly couldn't handle rejection from other people at that time. And so fear of rejection is a huge one. It's the reason why a lot of us don't do a lot of things and why we don't step into our full authentic selves, because we're afraid. We're afraid of being rejected by other people in the world. Well, I'm going to tell you something. Not everyone in the whole entire world will reject you. In fact, people are going to appreciate you a whole lot more when you step into fully being your full authentic self. And when you own it. So I'll go into that a little bit more, but that fear of rejection, it's like not even real. You know, it's one of those things that we're afraid of. Like, if we don't fit into the mold, then where do we fit in? Who are we going to be? Who will spend time with us? Those kinds of things. So that fear of rejection, it's very real. I know it feels very real, but it's something that you have to overcome in order to be your full authentic self and in order for you to step out of the spiritual closet. So I was super scared. Like, you know, what if everyone thinks that I'm crazy and they all reject me? And then what, you know? Which trickles down into the second fear, which was stopping me, which was fear of being alone. You know, I didn't have a partner at the time when I was like getting started with all of this stuff. And I was like, oh God, what if no one ever dates me ever again? Ever. Like, I'll just be single for the rest of my life. Like, I didn't want that, you know? So it was like that fear of being alone. What if all the people that I know are like, she went off the deep end and they don't spend time with me anymore? You know, what if my children reject me? Like, what could happen? And so that fear of being alone was super real. The interesting thing was, though, again, it was super real to me in my own mind, but it wasn't actually real in real life. Why? Because I've ended up dating since then. I had a boyfriend. He actually found this stuff really fascinating, and found me really fascinating. So it's something that was created bigger in my own mind than it actually was in real life, which is how most fears go. All right, number 3, the fear of being judged. What will people say? What are people going to say about me? They're going to talk about me behind my back. What kind of mean things are they going to say? Well, here's some deep truth on that, right? If people are going to talk about you behind your back, you don't even have to give them a reason. They'll just find a reason to talk about you. So I was like, oh gosh, you know, what are they going to say? It's like, who cares? If they're actually someone who's like going to talk about another person behind that person's back, like, I actually don't even care what their opinion is anyway. And it doesn't really matter what I do, they're going to say something about it. And so that fear of being judged is something that we totally have to let go of if you want to step into living as your true authentic self, in the way that works truly for you. So if that's you stepping out of that spiritual closet and owning who you are, you got to do it. But this, like, despite the fear, right? Despite the fear of rejection, despite the fear of being alone, and despite the fear of being judged, because I'm going to tell you right now, all those things are false anyway. I have been about almost 3 years in this space of owning my business, and sort of like from the time that the whole thing started, none of that stuff came true. None of it. In fact, I have more friends. There's more people around me that I relate to and that are more like me at this point in my life. I've had no issues with dating. And, you know, if people are talking about me, I don't really care. I don't know, and I also don't care. So let's see what else I have on here. Oh, yeah, fear of truly owning who I am. That's a big one. Fear of truly owning who you are. Because the thing is that, like, if I step into this space, if I take on this role, if I'm like, hey, I'm intuitive, you know, I like to do healing, like I like to energy stuff. If I step into that space, then I have to own it. I have to be that person. I can't just be like, oh, hey guys, just kidding. I was just kidding about all of that. You know, like, people are going to forget. So it's like, am I going to be obligated in some way? There is this like weird fear of like, once I step out and say that I can do this stuff, am I going to be obligated to do this stuff? The reality is no, unless you want to be, right? So if you, let's just say that you have mediumship abilities, okay? So a medium is typically, the way that we think of a medium is someone who talks to dead people. If you are someone who can do this, you're not obligated to go talk to every single person's dead grandmother that you meet in your lifetime. Like, no, that's not how it works. It's like, if you want to share your gift of that mediumship, if you want to help other people with that, then you can. So you're not obligated to do anything just because you're like, oh, hey, this is what I do. You know, you can certainly pick and choose. So remembering that that autonomy is there, that those choices are yours. Let's see where else I had on here. So blocks. I had a couple of different blocks, and I'm sure that these are, you know, across the board blocks. Lack of self-acceptance was one of them. So the thing is that I wasn't aware how intuitive I was, because it was just my normal. So as I was going through my life, I can see now, looking back in hindsight, how I was very intuitive my whole life, and how sometimes I shut it down, and then how sometimes I did utilize it, but I never fully understood it or accepted it or embodied it until I was much older. And it was almost 3 years ago that I met someone, and in that process and working with her and doing Reiki on her, that's how I really started to realize how expansive they actually were, that I was unaware of. And so I think that having that like lack of self-acceptance was a huge barrier for me, because initially when it happened, I had no idea that it was like as pronounced as it was. And so just to give you like a quick little backdrop, you know, I met this wonderful woman at a yoga class. She was wanted to have some Reiki done. I was like, oh yeah, you know, I had that certification done. I haven't really used it. She's like, oh, come over to my house, you know, do Reiki on me. And so I went over, and I had a conversation with her husband, but he died 5 years before I met her. And that freaked me out, you know, like it freaked me out. So initially there was this like lack of self-acceptance in my own self, because I was like, wait a minute, I can hear him clear as day. Like, he's standing next to me and talking to me, having a full-on conversation with me. How is this possible? And then not only that, but like all the different things that I could read from her body. And so of course after that I was just like, okay, everyone I knew, come over, come to my living room. Let me see what's going on here. You know, let me figure this out. And through that process, I obviously, you know, figured out exactly what was going on and how I was doing things. But it was scary and terrifying to accept this new version of myself. And I can remember telling my cousin one night, I was like, I think I'm a medium. Shh, like, don't tell anyone, you know, like, don't talk about this with anybody. And, she actually was very helpful because there were apparently some people in the family I was unaware of who were also mediums. So people don't always come out of that closet. And if they do, and if they did, like, oh my gosh, maybe I wouldn't have been, this late of a bloomer. But anyway, okay. So moving on though, on the deepest levels, when we're hiding some of that stuff, we're rejecting who we truly are. And so that's something that you need to just ask yourself. Like, am I, by hiding this part of me, is there somewhere inside that I'm rejecting my own self? I'm rejecting who I truly am. Because if so, it's time to get over that hump so that you can bring yourself, your full self, out into the world and share that with everyone else. Self-doubt. I had huge self-doubt, especially in the beginning, because in the beginning it was like all of this stuff was happening. I was like doing sessions on people, having all these intuitive things come up, seeing things, hearing things, feeling things, everything, just knowing stuff. And I was like, am I making it all up? Am I crazy? And I'm just the last person who's going to find out that I'm crazy? Like, what is going on? And so that self-doubt was huge. And that blocked me too from being able to just be like, okay, let me own this. Let me totally say hey, this is what's going on. I had to work through all of that self-doubt, and also experience helped a lot too. So if you're brand new to the whole intuitive abilities thing, you're like, I think I'm claircognizant, or I think I'm clairaudient. I totally get being sort of having that space of self-doubt. But once you've gotten some experience under your belt and you've practiced on people and you're getting that valid feedback, yeah, you're totally right. You do have it, you're going with it, you're going in the right direction. Also, I always say that intuitive abilities are not a gift, they are your birthright. So I'm not special. This is just something that was part of who I was always. A lot of times I couldn't really see it. And it wasn't until, at this point when all of this stuff sort of blew open, I had been doing yoga for years. I had done Reiki 1 and Reiki 2 training. I had been meditating for years. So it wasn't just I woke up one day and it was just oh, look, I hear dead people. No, it was something that was progressive and that I didn't know that I was actually working up towards until I got there. Which I'm going to quick side note with that one, that a lot of times the universe does that sort of stuff, right? Because if you knew what was coming down the road, you'd be like, nope, I'm good. Thanks. I'm not going to do that. And then you wouldn't go in that direction. So instead it's just oh, let's send you this way, So it's oh, I really enjoyed yoga. I was feeling really good. And it's oh, Reiki training. I'm oh, I've always been interested in that. Let me take that training, Oh, meditating feels really nice. I'm just going to keep doing this, all these things. And then you get to this space where it's all of this stuff culminates and it creates something. And that something is who you actually truly are on the inside. If you knew in advance where you were headed, a lot of times you would just turn around and run in the other direction. So that's why some of that stuff is blocked from your consciousness. Anyway, okay, that was a brief aside. Back to self-doubt. After hundreds of sessions, I can actually say now that I don't doubt myself and my abilities. But in the beginning, I totally did. I totally was just crazy lady doesn't know I'm crazy. So practicing on people and finding people to practice with is a way for you to help quell that self-doubt. And the thing is, in order to practice on people, you have to tell them what you're up to. So you have to come out of the closet just to be able to practice on people so you can come out of the closet even more, right? This is how it works. I definitely questioned my sanity a lot in the beginning. And at this point, I finally don't anymore. But in the beginning, I questioned it a ton. And I think that's super normal. So if that's something that you're doing, it's pretty normal and it's totally fine. Your whole system is sort of being rewired when you are going through a spiritual awakening, or when you're finding, your intuitive gifts and how your intuition works, and you're getting to the deeper levels and layers of your own self. Whoa, that's serious stuff, So it can feel overwhelming, and it can make you question your sanity every once in a while. So that's why it's important to do things like earthing, grounding, just things to kind of make sure that you stay here with us, down here, chilling on earth. Let me see what else I have written here. Lack of knowledge was a big block for me too, because I wasn't really fully aware what was going on. So it was I knew that when I touched people, all of these things happened. And I was okay, what is happening? Like, I don't get it. I don't understand. And so I definitely had to go through this whole learning curve, and I read like hundreds of books um, and really like dove fully in to figure out exactly like what is happening, how is this happening, how am I doing this, and to like put all of the pieces together in my mind. So lack of knowledge was definitely something that was blocking me from really being able to be like, hey, guess what I do? So if that's something that's blocking you, I advise like learn, take courses or read books, things like that, so that you feel more comfortable. Because I remember that I would like open up a book and they were able to put words to what I couldn't put words to. It was like I experienced this precisely how they were talking about it in the book, but I just didn't have words for it because we don't really have words for a lot of this stuff that happens in our energy fields and sort of in the intuitive world, simply because like that's not how most people are going through their lives. And so without having those words and like that way of like composing it, it's like I know it, but I don't know how to express that I know it. And so reading books was really very helpful because it's like, yeah, that's exactly what happens. And so it's like, oh, here's words for it. Here's why it's happening. So remember, fear of rejection, super normal. Fear of being alone, super normal. Fear of being judged, super normal. Fear of truly owning who you are, also super normal. Some of the blocks that you can have. Self-doubt, lack of self-acceptance, and lack of knowledge, all of those things. So what I did was I started very slowly in the whole process. It was like I started doing Reiki, started doing a little more frequently, and then like I would have a lot of questions, so I would call my teacher and she would either have answers for me, or if she didn't have answers for me, she would like send me to talk to somebody else, and then they would give me some answers. And then I was starting to read the books and just putting all the pieces together. And so in the very beginning stages, I was like creeping my own self out, because here I had these like little crystals, and I'm like putting these little crystals in my bra, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like I'm putting rocks in my bra now. Like I was totally judging my own self with it. Like, why am I putting rocks in my bra? But they felt really good. Like it felt comforting to have them with me. So it was like, I'm just gonna keep doing them. And then it was like, well, this one says it's for this, and this one says it's for that. So I was rolling with it. The other thing I started doing was she said to like get cedarwood spray for when I'm doing Reiki or whatever. So it was like, this is a cedarwood spray. Can you see that I actually started out with? And I smelled like a tree. Like every day of my life, I smelled like a tree, and I had rocks in my bra. So I was super judging myself in the beginning of like, what are you doing? Have you lost your mind? And so all of that, of course, is a process to have to go through to move to the other side of it. So if you're in that space right now, like just accept that that's where you are right now. That's where you're moving to. I own it now, like I put rocks in my bra, I put them in my pocket, I sleep with them in my bed, I hold them in my hands, I meditate with them. They're all over my house, like they're in every plant I own. But in the beginning, I was definitely a little freaked out with my own self. And I think that's normal, because it's something that I had never done and I had never seen. I think a lot of this stuff is much more normalized now, but when I was growing up, there wasn't much of it. And if there was, I wasn't in that like realm of consciousness to be connecting with it, so I wasn't seeing it. One of the things that that was interesting though to me is that despite this sort of like lack of understanding and like lack of knowledge and like the what is happening to me space, was that somewhere deep inside it felt right. It was just like, yeah, this feels right. Like this makes so much sense. Like my whole life started to make so much more sense to me. And so it was that like inner knowing which kind of gave me that drive to keep going. It was like, I'm gonna keep going with this. I just feel inside that this is who I am, and I'm going to discover more of who I am as I continue to go through this process, which is true. And I will say that like I don't think we're ever done. Like we're never finished any sort of like healing process or life journey, right? Not until the day you die. But up until then, you're constantly learning, you're constantly growing, you're constantly evolving into the next greatest version of yourself. And that's what you're here to be doing. Like you're here to continually evolve. So if you can look at going through a spiritual awakening as an evolution of your soul and like an evolution of your human self, and an opening up to who you are on the deepest levels to your own self, then you will understand that like this is just the next thing for you. This is just where you've arrived to. And so the thing with the like even that word, right, that quote unquote spiritual awakening, like at the end of the day, what does it mean? It's like you're coming home to you. You're finding more of who you truly are inside. And so as I was going through this process, I'm like figuring out who I am and figuring out, you know, how I'm going to now operate in the world, obviously in a completely different way than I've ever operated before. And it was terrifying, you know, but I also knew that it had to happen and that I had to do it and that it was who I truly was. When I first started to come out of this space, you know, and putting the rocks in my bra and smelling like a tree and like talking to dead people, I remember that the one girl that I was friends with said, if Erica says that she's hearing voices, then she's hearing voices. And that was so powerful to me in that moment because it was the validation that I needed. I needed to be seen and to be heard in this space because I thought I was possibly losing it. And so to have that validation from an external source at that time was really valuable. So thank you, Gabby, if you ever watch this. I really appreciate and love you very much for that. But, you know, as weird as it is, like, even to my own self, I just felt like this is where I'm supposed to be. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. So if you're having that feeling, like, I don't know why I'm attracted to, you know, whatever, rituals, or I don't know why I'm attracted to like fire ceremonies or water ceremonies or crystals or sound healing or crystal bowls. Like, I don't know why I'm attracted to this, but I'm just so attracted to it and so interested in it. Follow that. Continue down that path. See where it leads you, because all paths lead you somewhere. So it can take you to another space that you didn't even know existed. And if you hadn't got down the original path, you wouldn't be able to find the other one. All right, let's see. Where am I now? Oh, what to do if you're still in the spiritual closet. So if you are hiding in the spiritual closet, which a lot of people are, right? I have a spiritually based business and tons of people come and see me, and tons of people who you wouldn't expect come and see me, you know, professionals and all sorts of people. And a lot of people are hiding in the spiritual closet, and I know it's lonely in there. It's very lonely to be in that space. And so I'm going to give you a few tips to get yourself out of that spiritual closet. So the one is building internal strength and accepting yourself. So you've got to find a way to begin accepting yourself. Now, it's super helpful when other people can reflect some of that validation and acceptance back to you, like Gabby was able to do for me. And that's wonderful. But it also is to be utilized to help you build your internal strength. Because let me tell you, you're going to get made fun of. It's just the way it works. People made fun of me. I mean, people I knew for like 13 years made fun of me. My own children made fun of me. In fact, my own children still make fun of me. My family made fun of me. My friends made fun of me. I mean, everyone made fun of me. So I had to have some level of internal strength to just be like, this is what I am. This is how I'm living now. Like, this is what I'm doing now. There had to be some sort of strength in order to be able to continue on and to even get to this space right now where I'm filming this video. Are you kidding me? I could have never done this before. There has to be that internal strength and acceptance in your own self, and that what you have to offer is valuable. What you have to offer will help people, and that you being the truest, most authentic version of yourself is going to help people way more than you hiding in the closet. So the next thing, start slow. Just start with a few people, right? In the beginning, I only told a couple of people. I remember being terrified to tell my father for some reason. So I told my mom first. And it was easy because it was like I had done a session on my cousin, and I had heard her grandmother, which was like that grandmother was twins with my grandmother. And so I told my mom, like, oh, hey, you know, guess who I heard? Guess who I talked to? No big deal. And so she told my dad. So then that's how my dad found out. And he was like, pretty cool. pretty cool. You can talk to dead people. And I was just like, oh my God, I didn't expect that from him. So start slow. Start slow. Start telling people that you trust, or people that are close to you, people that you maybe don't think will judge you, and don't think that just because you think that they're not going to judge you, that they aren't going to judge you, because they might anyway. But start slow and start telling people that are closer to you, as that helps you build that internal strength, that helps you feel seen, feel heard, feel validated, and helps you spread it out further. Now, I will say, if those first few people don't give you that, support and that you need, don't worry about it. They're not your people. Someone else will. Which really brings me to the next one, which is understand that people won't understand. Okay? So, not everyone's going to get you. Not everyone's going to understand. I had more than enough people tell me all sorts of things, mean things sometimes, especially people who are very religious. They look down upon what I was doing. So I had people be mean, downright mean to me. So you have to understand, though, that you don't need to take any of that personally. Just understand that people won't understand. Some people are going to totally understand. They're going to totally get you. And other people are never going to get you. And you have to just be okay with that. The thing is that people will, it's easier for people to reject you as an individual human being than it is for them to reject their entire belief system. So think about that. If you were like, hey mom, guess what? I do Reiki, it's energy healing. I just take energy from source and put it through people, and it just changes their lives. And if your mom's just like, what are you talking about? That's not even possible. The thing is she's not necessarily rejecting you. She's just rejecting that belief system and that idea. And that's easier for her than to go and rethink her whole entire belief system that she's spent her whole life believing. And so you've got to understand that. Now, I'm going to tell you, some people will. Some people will be like, tell me more about this. I'm interested to know more about this. Or I've always been really curious about that. Can you speak more about that? Some people will be interested. Some people will be curious. And I'm going to tell you another thing. Some people are going to be way ahead of you, and you had no idea that they were even into spiritual stuff, because that happens too. Other people in the spiritual closet who also haven't come out, and all of a sudden you're just like, hey, I want to tell you about this thing. And then before you know it, you've talked for 4 hours, and they've been in the classes for so long too, and they've read 100 books, and they're recommending them to you, and they're letting you borrow them. So that can also happen. But I don't even remember where I was. Bottom line is, it's easier for a human to dismiss another human rather than rethink their entire belief system. So if that happens, just let it happen, okay? The other thing too is that maybe they'll join you. Maybe they'll come along. One of the things that I think I see a lot of, and I know I did myself, was just oh my God, life is so wonderful this way. This is such a cool way to experience life. Come on, everybody come with me. And nobody was that excited about it, They didn't want to come with me. So that actually brings me to number 4 important thing, which is put your feelers out there to find your tribe. You've got to find people that are in the same space as you, that are seeing the world with the same lens that you're seeing it, that are having similar experiences to you, that are either further along on the path that they can help guide you, or they're right there alongside with you, and you guys can go along with that together. But having that little tribe was so powerful for me, and I know it's so powerful for other people, because as humans, we crave community, we crave connection, we crave intimacy. And so if this is a huge part of who you are and you have no one to share it with, then it's going to make that trek so much more lonely and so much more difficult. So finding those people that you can connect with and that you can, do your cool stuff with, it's going to be so helpful for you on your path, and also make you feel more normal, right? You are normal, but we don't feel it when we're going through it. Number 5, be unapologetically you. You have to be you. You have to own you, and you don't have to apologize for being you. You just be unapologetically you. And that is so important. important. You can't be anyone else anyway except your own self. You could try, but it's not going to work. You have to just be you. It has to come from within. That is going to show in your whole energy field. So own it. Accept yourself. Own who you are and get out of that closet and start to enjoy this crazy world that we're living in and help make it a better place. And the last one is, if you want to, share. So you can help make it a better place by sharing your experiences, sharing what you've learned, sharing your energy, sharing your knowledge. However you want to share it. If you totally are super into crystals, and you want to learn all about them and you want to teach people about them, do it. Do it. What we need in this wonderful, crazy world is more people who are so excited about what it is that they do, because that energy of excitement is so high vibrational, and it just floods rooms, right? Have you ever gone into a room where you're going to listen to someone to talk and they're just so excited about talking? That energy floods that space, and then you leave excited. That's what we want. We want people who are excited about the lives that they're living. We want people who are not hiding in the closet and afraid to show who they truly are with the world, but they're excited when they wake up in the morning and they're jumping out of bed because they get to do exactly what they want to do every single day of their life, live it exactly how they want to be living it, and share exactly who they are, their full, true, authentic self with the whole entire world, or just, the people in your state, whatever, wherever you are, whoever you want to share it to. There is no limit and there is no ceiling, only the ones that you create. And that's it. So, if you are still living in spiritual closets, think about all those things that I said in the beginning: fear of rejection, fear of being alone, fear of being judged, fear of truly owning who you are. Think about those things. Where do they align with you? Do you have more fears? I'm sure that there's plenty more fears that I didn't cover, that I didn't feel or experience. Do you have them? If you do, knock them out. Get over them, move past them so you can move into this next space. Remember, what did I start with here? What are your blocks? Figure out what your blocks are. What is blocking you from being your full self, full authentic self? And then stepping into it, stepping out of that spiritual closet. It's going to require you to build internal strength and accept yourself. That is self-love. And a bigger act of self-love is actually stepping out of that closet and being like, hey world, guess what? I talk to dead people, or whatever it is, that cool thing that you do. I'm super into crystals, or I love to teach candle meditation. Whatever it is, you got to step out of that closet and start doing it. Start slow, start to tell a few people, feel it out. The other thing that is important that I forgot to mention about starting slow is that you get to work through your triggers. So it's if you tell one person and they laugh at you or do whatever, you get to work through all those triggers that come up with that. And then this way, the next time it happens, you're just and you can't be stopped. They can't knock you down because you've already worked through all of those triggers. It's I already heard this stuff. I don't want to hear it again. Understand that people won't understand. Not everyone's going to understand you. Not everyone's going to get you. Just be cool with it. There's really nothing else that you can do except that one. Put your feelers out there to meet your tribe. So I know that it depends on where you live, because certainly there's places where there aren't other people who are in spiritual stuff, locally. And so when that happens, you've got to go online. And even if you are in a place where other people are into spiritual stuff, there might not be anybody who's into precisely what it is that you're into. I mean, gosh, the list is endless of all sorts of things that you can be into when it comes to the spiritual realm. And so if you can't find someone, then go ahead and look online for that person to find. And be unapologetically you and own it. Own it. Be yourself. Own it. And then finally, share if you want to. You are under no obligation to share anything if you don't want to. But I will say that this world could certainly use every single human being living from their most full, authentic, true selves and sharing that beautiful energy out into the world, because that is the energy that shifts things, and that is the energy that changes the world. And let's be frank, this world isn't exactly the most peachy keen place to be living right now, and so the only way for us to change that is to do something about it. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you're encouraged to step out of your spiritual closet, and I hope that you, as you do so, you find more of your true and authentic self. Thank you so much for listening.